Yeah, bo. Good morning, everybody. You like that? There's a lot of
What is
energy here,
that?
right?
Sounds
I
a
don't
bit like a drowning cat.
Yeah, sorry. I've left
I'm
my
just
singing voice.
saying.
I've left my singing voice in the toilet. Good morning, Phumelele. How are you?
Sawubona, Baba. How are
Ah,
you?
it was Sabon. Unjan.
Yeah, boy. It's a wonderful morning, and it's good to see you back in your library.
Yes, I am back in my house, and we are doing the show from here this morning. I've got a couple of things I have to do all the way through the day today, so I had to prioritize whether I was going to be in studio or not. But of course, no matter where I am, as the audience of this show knows, I will make sure I'm there for the show. So didn't even miss yesterday while we were away, and back again this morning. So let's get right into it. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to see. There's a
We
lot of people
appreciate
to.
you for that, Gareth.
Thank you, Pumelele. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you appreciate me for that. Isn't that nice? mutual
You're full of
mutual
nonsense this
appreciation
morning.
society. Oh my God, and how? So
Mm?
there's lots to get stuck into this morning. I didn't play this last time, and I know we're going to save politics for a bit later, but I just want you to see Sakina when she was interviewing Sputla Ramakgopa, because it might just get us thinking about a whole lot of things, and not all just political. But just take a look at this. I want you to see. May as well start with the hard stuff. I mean, this is a week late, but it's better late than never, because I told you last time, I really like this Sakina. I think she's amazing. I only met her properly for the first time last year, because obviously her show's on at the same time as mine, so I never get to see what she's doing on her show, right? So here she is.
But you don't have powers, Minister, so how is this going to work? Who's going to give, the instructions to whoever to bring about the sort of effect that you're trying to achieve?
Wherever those powers are lying. So that's the point I'm making. Wherever those powers are lying. Now, because we have gone to this power station, so if it's a cabinet decision, wherever those powers are lying, it will be implemented, and this minister will make sure that we bring to the attention of the country progress.
So, as the minister, you have to go to other ministers to tell them, okay, this is what I found, and you need to implement
Absolutely,
this.
because
so you're a project manager.
I'm not sitting with those original. Yes, it's true.
So you are a project manager,
we are
a minister. Project manager.
Because I'm not sitting with executive powers, but I'm saying that's not an excuse. I just shared with you what are the things that we have done, and engaging with those ministers says this is what ought to be done.
Okay. And
once those powers come, then I'm able to do it directly. But I'm saying that should not be an excuse.
Like, this guy's he's kind of, I feel a little bit sorry for him. It's a bit pathetic. It's sort of like you've been told you're the boss, but you really have no powers. It's like so many people in corporate South Africa who have to bring in consultants to make their decisions for him. This guy has to first clear it with other ministers. Yeah. And then
what's today?
Just
Today's the 18th.
I mean, yeah.
It's the 18th of the month, and because the last time I knew about this, government employees got paid on the 20th of the month, which means 2 days from now, he'll have his wonderful salary, ministerial salary, to comfort him. I don't feel sorry for him.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, good point. I do want to throw this in, though, because I didn't see any of this. Maybe you did. Who watched Bullfrog 5-Chin Pravin Gordon yesterday? I didn't. Did he say something I should have known about?
What he did was, now that Andre de Ruyter's book is out, which throws him under the bus, which essentially throws him under the bus. He then, yesterday and the day before, I think he was speaking in Parliament about how useless Andre de Ruyter was. This is after he's failed. Years defending him, give him a chance. He's So now that he's been thrown under the bus by the same director, he comes out here telling us he was useless. I think the analogy he made was something like, It was a medical analogy. I'll find it for you. It's very funny. It's funny, but it's not funny.
This Praveen, he thinks we don't remember. He thinks we've forgotten that he has been minister in something related to Eskom for a very long time, whether it was public enterprises, whether it was public works with old Tula Singwesi at the time. We had this hugely inefficient, corrupt.
He is the minister that, as a finance minister, received a budget surplus.
Right.
Received a budget surplus. And he squandered it all.
Squandered it. He pretends he's one of the good guys. And there's some stupid people in this country who believe he's one of the good guys.
I don't think those people still exist who still believe he's a good guy. I think he has been unmasked as a villain.
I think they do. Have you read any of De Ruyter's books since we're talking about it? No, neither have I. I saw that it's so messed up. Like, I understand everybody wants to read this book, right? But I got to stand up for the publishers for a second here and for De Ruyter himself. So he's gone to the trouble of writing this book, and now everybody's just passing around PDFs of it to each other. So no one's going to buy the book. Now, forgive me, but I just don't think that's right. Like, you've got to pay for things that are. You've got to pay for something if it's valuable. I honestly don't think it's okay.
Although in fairness, maybe not for the publishers, but for De Ruyter, when did he actually write this book? At the time when he was supposed to have been fixing Eskom? At the time when he was supposed to be exposing all of the things that are supposedly now in his book? We've already paid him. We've already paid him for that.
Well, yeah, but he says he wrote it after he. Since you remember he did that Annika Larsen interview. That was a good month and a half ago, and you could easily write a book. I don't know. Look, I think you're right though. Good point. If he was writing this already while he was sitting at his desk in Eskom, then we were paying him at the time, so we already got it for free. We should get it for free, right?
Yeah, we should get it for free. I'm sorry for the publishers. They've been duped by him.
So I had the weirdest thing happen to me this morning. I woke up at like 3:30 because there was a massive storm. And yeah, I heard thunder and lightning, and it was a flash of lightning, funnily enough, that woke me up. And then something in my house tripped. I mean, it's bad enough that we've got like load shedding and you're never sure.
What do you mean? Like in the grid, like something on your mains?
Yeah, on my distribution board, something tripped. So then I find myself walking downstairs with a torch on my phone again to try and figure out now what is tripping. Because also, I don't know whether it's a plug or whether it's the lights. Trying to figure out what's tripping the power here at 3:30 in the morning. You know how stupid I felt? I was like, what do you do at 3:30 in the morning? Get into bed and go back to sleep. But I couldn't get back to sleep. So I'm going to be a complete zombie today, but that's all right. I mean, there are people with real problems.
Also, but at 3:30, if you're up at 3:30, you can't sleep anymore because you're too worried that you're going to oversleep because you have to be up by like 4:30 to be ready for the show.
I know. So here, listen to this. Carl, let me give you right of reply, Phumi. Phumi, really? So you're just okay with IP theft and piracy? Ooh.
I'm okay with fucking De Ruyter over. That's what I'm okay with.
All of these people who had to do with the demise and who've done nothing to arrest that demise at Eskom.
I think the thing for me that's quite galling about his book.
They shouldn't make another cent. And we still got to determine whether or not he's responsible for making it worse, because we don't know for a fact.
What I've read about his book from various people. What I've read about his book from various extracts, people who are reading it, people in WhatsApp groups that I'm in. he seems to be putting it all out there, right? To be who the people, and that's why I'm saying that he threw Pravin under the bus in his book, it seems.
Good.
But all of that information is what he should have, that's part of the job he was supposed to do. Tell the police,
Listen,
tell cabinet, tell the president, tell someone that this is what's going wrong and these are the people that are involved, and do something. But it seems that he was writing notes to write a book, a tell-all book, instead of doing that work.
You sent me a thing I want you to talk us through about what will happen. Apparently this is real, okay? I don't know if it's real or not.
It looks real. I didn't know if it's real or not. Remember what I said to you when I sent it, before I sent it? I said to you, I don't know if it's real.
It looks legit. So what it is it says National Blackout Awareness, and it's got all the ESCOM branding and everything else around it. And
also the really crappy like ESCOM's work, right? So like all of the
really bad graphics. You know, it's like a PowerPoint presentation that could have been put together by a high school kid. Which is exactly why I believe it's real.
This is
now this
dominoes.
This thing basically, yeah, I mean, here it talks about here. Listen to this. Possible key roles in a blackout. The core role is blackout prevention, response, and recovery. They go through what will happen essentially if everything fucks out at ESCOM, if the whole thing collapses. Then what they're going to do, the first thing they're going to do is restore the system, supposedly. The second thing they're going to do is load restoration. And the third thing they're going to do is load recovery. Now, I don't know what the difference between those things are, but if this is going to be run by any of those current idiots that we've got in place there, good Lord, it's just unbelievable. Like a national blackout could occur, you know?
So the fact that they have a whole like 2 slides of international, regional, and national blackouts between the year 2020 and the year 2023. Like that is just like, and they've got Bangladesh in here. Remember we spoke about the Bangladeshi blackout a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mumbai, India.
Oh my God. Listen, Nico says, Gareth,
someone here says the presentation is legit.
Okay, so there we go. I mean, I'll take our audience's word for it. Nico says, Gareth, you need a head torch like every other South African. You can do so much more with 2 hands. I'm going to walk around now with a head torch. I think part of this Ruyter thing, by the way, is that if he doesn't come out and start telling the truth about what happened, he could be taken out. The best way to protect yourself is to tell everybody.
Is he back from Germany? Is he back from Germany? He's in self-imposed exile, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Do you know anything? I'm not even sure where he is or where he's been. I didn't even know he was in Germany. You're just telling me that now. Holy shit. Unbelievable.
That's why he had to do a virtual presentation to Parliament the other day, because he was at an undisclosed location in Deutschland.
Wow, he must really be worried for his life. That's the only explanation I can think of, right? And these guys, maybe Pravin, maybe we've, because I already think he's one of the most dangerous people in the world, but maybe we've totally underestimated him. Maybe he's even more dangerous than we think. Huh? Maybe he can kill people. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe Pravin is the dude behind all of those political assassinations. We just don't know it.
Oh, maybe he is. Somebody sent in one of the groups that I'm in a video, a video of Pravin. Oh, Gareth. A whole
What is this video of Pravin?
This is the video of Pravin in Parliament. Let me see if I can send it to you. That's very funny.
Yeah. So listen to this. Carl says, I don't think anyone understands the calamity that will ensue if there's a blackout. Proper fuck. No internet, no water, no cell reception. Fuck all for at least a month, maybe much longer. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, if that's true, that is very, very scary.
I think we all understand it, and we're all really worried about it and freaked out, but also feeling a little bit like, what can we do at this point?
Well, we didn't create the problem. I mean, this is something that, the government keeps saying, we will work this out together. We're trying to figure this out. I'm like, you must. We already pay you. And frankly, I don't know if you've noticed this, but despite all the blackouts and all the lockdown, all the load shedding, I've noticed my bill has stayed more or less the same. Have you?
So,
my electricity bill has not changed.
The prepaid people like me have seen that what you load up isn't lasting as long as it used to. So whether you have the power or not, it's just gone.
How's that possible? So we're being ripped off as well. I mean, that's what I'm guessing. So we're being ripped off as well as not getting the service that we thought we were paying for.
So now we're in the realm of doomsday preppers, right? We've laughed about doomsday prepping on the show before, but now we're in that realm. Now we must be seriously considering, how do we prep for that kind of a doomsday? It's gonna be like it's gonna be like when it was pandemic lockdown all over again. Toilet paper running out of the stores.
Well, okay, so any shopping mall usually only has a couple of days of food, right? And then they run out. So if the shops run out, can you imagine the chaos that will ensue? Can you imagine? And my brother-in-law, or my sister's boyfriend, he laughs at me because I tease him. I say, like, you're a prepper or whatever, because he keeps like tin food and all kinds of stuff that I think is horrible that you wouldn't want to keep in your house. He's like, no, you won't. You'll have nothing to laugh at when I'm the only one who's got food for a month. I mean, do we have to start? Do you think we have to start thinking like this, Phumi? Really?
I think we might have to. We haven't seen a Julius Malema ranting session. He used to have those like at Winnie Mandela House. He used to have those press conferences, and then he'd hold court for 2 hours ranting about all sorts of things. He had one of those the other day, and one of the things he spoke about was about a total blackout, and how nobody would be safe from anything in a total blackout because it's going to affect everyone, whether you're rich or not, whether you have a generator or not, he was...
No, he's right.
He was classic Julius Malema.
But obviously, if people know that sort of stupid shit's going to happen, they're going to try and stock up. And this is the problem I have. I just don't like all this doomsday stuff. I really don't. And I know we've got to be sensible about it. But I mean, how
So what's your top three things that you would keep?
I think I've got to keep you've got to keep food. Some kind of preserved food that'll last you a long time. Something like mealie meal. You need that kind of thing. Because as long as you keep it dry, you can make mealie meal and you could survive on that, right?
LPG gas.
Probably gas. I think that's a good one. LPG gas is a good one. Yeah, and then I would say ammunition. Ammo. You need ammo.
Ammunition?
Mm-hmm. And you can't get ammo at the moment. It's fucking expensive and it's really hard to find.
Ammunition's not on my list.
You need ammunition. Phumi, what are you going to do? Attack them with your bread knife? When they come for your tins of beans? When they come for your... Have you not watched any of these zombie movies? I've watched these movies. The danger isn't for zombies. It's the other people. It's your neighbors who hear us. Phumi has still got... I can hear her opening cans of beans at night. I'm going to come and get her. So you have to have some way to protect yourself from those neighbors. Don't laugh. I'm telling you.
It's the neighbors. She's got toilet paper.
But how long do you think it will take before people just get pissed off enough to like haul Cyril Ramaphosa out of the union buildings and like
that is not going to change the situation. It's not Cyril Ramaphosa that needs to be hauled out of the union buildings. It's everybody.
But I mean, what if people did that? Because we know where to find these people, right? We know where they are.
Look, because is that not what happened with Jacob Zuma? You know, there were marches in the streets. Zuma must go. All of that. No. And here we are.
I'm not talking about like he must resign from the ANC or he must be deposed. No, I'm talking about like kangaroo court shit. Because, you know, South Africans are up to here already. I'm not by any means saying this is the right way to go.
Kangaroo court.
It's not outside the realms of possibility, Phumi. You know what happened in the townships in the 90s, hey? There was a lot of crazy shit that went down, and I don't think that South Africa in 2023 is that much different. Think about it. Just think.
That's a hard one.
It could be very scary. See, what this government doesn't realize is that while they're busy ruining the economy and not sorting out the electricity problem and insisting on creating more dumb laws and pretending everything's okay, what they're doing is they're bringing themselves closer and closer to collapse. Because there is a point, there's a line which people reach, and I think a lot of people who aren't Phumi and Gareth have reached this line already, where they would do some pretty fucking crazy shit. Some of it that is deadly, deadly dangerous. And they won't even care what happens to them. You know what people are like? They've done this under far less trying circumstances before. And if you look back in history, it doesn't take a majority of people to be pissed off. Remember, it just takes an intransigent minority. And then some very weird shit will happen. So I'm just saying, if a tiny group of really pissed off people get to a point where they just start like taking out cabinet ministers, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And if these guys haven't ever thought about it, they better get to work today. Not on a plan to fight the people who want to kill them, on a plan to get South Africa to stop getting to the brink. Because they need to do that, right? Producer Ryan says, I want to know who's going to pay 900 million for the Carlton Center. Is it worth that much? That's a good question. Is that what they're selling it for? The Carlton Center? I don't think anyone would buy it. Would you buy it?
I think it's already been sold.
To who? Kenny Kunene? Yeah. Hey, Snipes tells me that Lesotho is in lockdown. Is that true?
What does that even mean? What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Maybe Lesotho's...
what are you Googling? Is Lesotho in lockdown?
Yes. I'm going to go straight into it. Well, it says national lockdown implement. Oh, you must be joking. Is this now? This is new? Wow. If this is true now, then that country is really fucking backward. Because if COVID is still their concern, oh my
lockdown because of crime. He says lockdown because of crime. What does that mean? Snipes, you cannot be sending like 4-word messages.
Yeah, come on,
it's so cryptic. Lesotho is on lockdown. Lockdown because of crime.
Apparently they have a curfew from 10 to 4 a.m., 10 at night to 4 in the morning. Because the place is just out of control. Holy shit. Really? I mean, I'm sorry, everybody. I know you woke up this morning to feel good and to... Phumi and I, for the last half an hour, have basically put the fear of God into you. Sheesh. Sorry about that. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. Sure. I really thought that we'd come in this morning.
If it makes any of you feel better, this is not how I intended this morning to be. No, I did not start this morning thinking that I'm going to ruin everyone's morning.
I know. I feel terrible now. Anyway, all right. Gary says he drove past the Kendall Power Station yesterday. Absolutely nothing going on there. Another white elephant, just like the stadiums from 2010. Wow. Just nothing happening there? That's unbelievable. All right, so here's the story from Al Jazeera, and you can usually trust them, okay, with this, especially local
About
news.
Lesotho's lockdown.
Yeah, listen to this. So authorities in Lesotho have declared an indefinite curfew in the hope that curtailing the movement of people at night will help curb gun violence in the small southern African kingdom. The curfew, which came into force on Tuesday, comes just days after a prominent radio journalist was shot dead in a killing that shocked the nation. A curfew is imposed on all persons with effect from today. That was what the government gazette published on Tuesday. Residents are banned from being outside between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., and that was signed by the police commissioner. Curfew will remain in place until further notice. Those failing to comply could face a fine or 2 years in jail. They're going to try and tackle gun violence, they say. Journalist
Lesotho only has about 2.2 million people.
Yeah, well, clearly they can't control their 2.2 million people. So this journalist called Ralikonelo Joki, who's the host of Current Affairs show on a local private radio station, was gunned down by unknown assailants as he was leaving his workplace in Masiro on Saturday night. My God. The Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, said that he was shot once in the head and 13 times in the body. Jesus. He's the host of a current affairs show called Hlokwana Latsela. I heard it through the grapevine. Covered government, agriculture, corruption, best known for breaking a 2021 story about politicians who were illegally trading alcohol.
It's the alcohol mafia.
I suppose I'm just impressed that anyone would make a curfew over a DJ's death. I'm like, I know people in radio. I'd just carry on. I wouldn't put a curfew in for some radio idiot.
I saw a Facebook post with Sam Cowan put a Facebook post about her house being burgled the other day. And
oh no, really?
People don't even know. She was, but it was one of those very long posts, and she was commending the police station and how quickly they responded and her neighbors, and it was a good post.
Well, I didn't know about that either, so I'm really out of it. Okay, so let's talk about something that Phumi's trying to figure out now. She's contributing to a joint expense account with a bunch of people, and then it came time for her to pay, and it was way out.
No. When the quote came in, so we agreed
okay.
as a group of people that we're going to contribute. So we came together as a group of people that we're going to contribute to an expense for a friend. And then the quotes came in, and the quote is like 100 times more than what we all thought it would be.
100 times?
Except for what? 100 times. 100 times. I'm not joking. So in my mind, I thought we were going to have to contribute maybe 1,000 Rand at most. Each of us. Turns out we have to contribute close. Okay, so it's not 100 times. We have to contribute closer to 15,000 Rand each.
Jeez, that's still a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Who has that extra money lying around at the moment? Nobody.
So what I'm trying to figure out is this the moment for us to go, we need other quotes, but we don't have time? Or do I just go, my budget was 1,000, I can scrape maybe another 500 and make it 1,500, and that's it, girls. This is what I'm in for.
So what is it for? Or can't you tell us?
No, I can't tell you.
Is it an urgent necessity, or is it a luxury?
It is an urgent necessity. It's for a funeral expense for one of our friends.
No fucking way is what I would say. And I know there are cultural sensitivities here, but that person is dead.
I need more friends.
Dead. No, that person is dead. I'm sorry, Phumi, but she's gone, and there is no reason for you to waste something close to 15,000 Rand, which none of you could probably afford without blinking. Everyone in this country is pinched at the moment. I don't believe this is a good decision. I think this is a terrible thing to spend money on. Terrible.
Yeah, that's I'm feeling a little
Really?
in many ways.
Whoever
I'm
it
just
was.
like,
I mean, it must be someone very close to you if you're even considering helping to pay for this, which is amazing. But I would not. I'll tell you what, if it was my close family, um, who has 15 grand each, and I don't know how many of you there are, that is a very expensive funeral. And I'd say
that
I'm
is not,
sorry.
it's not a lot of us. It's not a lot of us. I did actually say, maybe we need to look in our books and see who else we can rope in to be part of this
No.
expense.
Why are you spending so much on this funeral? Just cut the costs. Go right down to the bones. Really, it's a funeral. I know it's an important cultural consideration, and to some people, it's the most important thing that you will ever do is the funeral. But honest to God, that dead person isn't even around to know.
But there's a group of us, so it's a collective decision. And so I'm just waiting to see how other people are responding.
So what do you think the expensive thing is? The event, the hire of the tent, the food, the catering.
My friend, everything is expensive. I have had an eye-opening week of all of the various expenses that are linked to a funeral. I had no idea. And it might be that I had no idea because we in our family have really only had my 3 grandparents in the past 5 years.
Right.
And those,
Right.
by the time you're a grandparent, right? So you all know my grandmother was 94 when she passed. There's really only family coming to that funeral. None of her friends are coming. None of you know what I'm saying? So it's just us. But other people, when you're a little bit younger, you have work colleagues, you have neighbors, there's a lot of people.
Well, cutting stunts being quite sensible here. Phumi, just telling you a budget was 1,000 and still is the end. Yeah. I think that's the way to go, honestly.
Look at Dr. Robin. Dr. Robin undertake a bill for her father.
Yeah. She said when her father died, it was 15,000 Rand in total. Oh my God. And I suppose, it's not like the 1800s where you can just take the dead person and just dig a hole and throw them in. Right? Can't do that. Are you allowed to even do that? No, you have to have someone.
I don't think you're allowed to do that.
No, there has to be a death certificate issued. And so I suppose there are some expenses you just cannot avoid, right?
There are some expenses you just can't avoid.
Jesus. I thought we were going to get more and more happy this morning, but we've got even more miserable. This may be the most depressing show we've done in 2023 yet. I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't know what to say to you. My God, this is terrible. I mean, Sharon says the same thing. She says her husband passed away 5 years ago. I went for the cheapest route and it cost me 15 grand. Wow. Holy
Listen,
shit.
I'm writing a list. I'm writing a list for my child in case I keel over in the next couple of so that he has a list of all the things. Just cremate me, call these 5 people. That's it.
Wow. I had no idea this is a serious consideration for so many people, probably. I mean, if it's you and your friends, there are a lot of people thinking about this stuff too. It just seems very strange to me. All right, let's move to something a little bit happier because there are.
So not news headlines.
No, my goodness. Here's something that made me smile. So Prince Harry and Meghan and Meghan's mother Doria were in a car on their way back from some award that Meghan won for being, I don't know, an attention-seeking grifter. And on their way in the car, apparently they were chased by the paparazzi. But New York police, because it all happened in New York. It turns out that the New York Police Department knows nothing about this. There's no evidence anything happened. Nothing. Zero. So what do we make of this?
Where did the news come from?
From Harry and Meghan themselves. Let me read the story to you. You can figure it out
in what
for
form?
yourself. All right. So Prince Harry, Meghan, and her mother were involved in a near catastrophic car chase involving paparazzi. A spokesperson for the couple said. The incident apparently happened after they attended an awards ceremony in New York on Tuesday. In the statement, their spokesperson said the relentless pursuit lasted for more than 2 hours. 2 hours. Were they driving to Canada? And resulted in multiple near collisions. The New York Police Department said there were no arrests or injuries. BBC News has not been able to independently verify all the details, but accounts and information developed throughout the day on Wednesday. They did confirm that there was an incident involving Harry and Meghan and said numerous photographers made their transport challenging. That's all they've said. No injuries or arrests reported. Buckingham Palace has obviously said nothing because they don't know anything. Entertainment picture agency Backgrid issued a statement saying it was investigating the conduct of several freelance photographers, but that their initial account of events differed from that of the Sussexes. The photographers have reported feeling the couple was not in immediate danger at any point. Followed claims the chase involved half a dozen cars with reckless driving, going through red lights, driving on the pavement, carrying out blocking moves, reversing down a one-way street, as well as taking photographs while driving.
So where are the pictures? Or are we not?
Well, that's it.
Is no one showing the pictures?
That's it. So anyway, this cab driver said he picked up the 4 passengers. That would be Harry and his wife. And he says, as we went a block, we got blocked by a garbage truck all of a sudden, and paparazzi came and started taking pictures. They were just about to give me the location of where they were going to. Then they told me to circle back to the precinct. He said they were nice people who looked nervous. He claimed he thought claims of a near catastrophic chase might have been exaggerated, saying, "Now this is the actual."
So they were in a cab.
Driver.
They were in a cab. Okay.
Yeah, and their own cab driver says they've exaggerated this near catastrophic chase, and he did not think the paparazzi were being aggressive. This is the
I don't
cab.
think we should be talking
driver.
about this. I don't think we should be talking about this. It's just feeding the monster. It's feeding the monster.
No, we've got to talk about this. These two are so self-absorbed and self-involved that they even in their heads starting to make up dangers and threats and traumas that don't exist.
And that's why talking about it, and that's why talking about it is feeding the monster.
I think it's hilarious, though. I mean, I really do. I think these people are such.
It sounds like a classic case of. Do you remember when your mom used to say to you, "Ignore it, ignore them, ignore them, and they'll go away"? I think this is what that sounds like. Just ignore it.
No, 100% right. Okay, so a lot of people are saying bullshit. Karine says, "Oh no, Meghan bores me to death." So she's with you, Phumi. I call BS, says Rusty. When you're being the biggest text in the world, you shouldn't blame the paparazzi. Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what this is also. It's just like it's a me also. Notice me also, because it's been all about William and Kate and Charles and.
So who is the fourth person if it was the mom and the? But that's
the cab driver and the 3 of them. There were 4 people in the car.
I thought he said he picked up 4. Okay.
No. Well, the 4th one might be their publicist.
Stop feeding the monster.
The publicist who was furiously making up the story on the way to their apartment. That's what it was. Really, these Harry and Meghan, they are just something. They are something else. All right, so let's leave them. Bullshit people. Let's leave it alone. By the way, for the Burning Platform later on, we're going to be joined by none other than Phumlani Majozi and our own Kanthan Pillay. Lots to do this morning on that.
There's so much going on. There's so much going on at the moment.
So I was away yesterday, and I feel very invigorated. I know a lot of people when they go away, and we managed to do the show yesterday anyway, so there's no interruption as far as that goes. But most people when they go away, they loathe to come back. They hate it. They're like, "Oh no, I don't want to come back. Oh, I don't enjoy stopping the fun." But to me, it's like you've got to live in the present, and the fun has to end at some point. You can't just keep in the fun all the time. I think that's like a drug addict who's always chasing the high, right?
Well, you've been to a lot of exotic places lately. I saw you. What sailing over in thingy Vic Falls.
Yeah, zip
You've been
lining in the Vic Falls. Pretty cool.
zip lining in the Vic Falls. But it's easy to get used to that kind of like life and then be like, going home to the boring life.
But that's not a life. No one lives that way all the time. The way most people live their life is a routine of waking up, going to work, showering, or showering before they go to work, hopefully, not showering after they get brushing their teeth, putting on work clothes, sitting in traffic. This is what most of us have to do every day. If you're lucky, you can find enjoyment in the day-to-day stuff. But even the strongest people occasionally need a break, and then they go away and they feel even better. They come back with like optimism and excitement, and I feel that way, which is why I feel so terrible about the first half hour of this show and us talking about all this zombie apocalypse shit. I mean, it wasn't what I intended, I promise.
I think being away probably made you think about the zombie apocalypse. Listen,
I really enjoy just. I mean, you don't have to leave South Africa to explore some of the most amazing things. You don't necessarily need to, pay for 5-star hotels and all that kind of thing. It's
this is the
access
thing
rather
about
than
South Africa. South
Mhm.
Africa is that's where we are extremely lucky. 2 weekends ago, I went to a game farm in Lephalale with some friends of mine. And Lephalale is 2.5 hours away from Joburg, right?
Yeah.
And you can see everything. You can see lions and wildebeest and elephants and rhino. And it was a magical weekend. It was a magical weekend. And all it was, really, we left on Friday morning and we came back on Sunday afternoon.
Wow. Quick. In and out.
But
That's
I did
plenty,
feel
though.
on Monday afternoon when I was sitting at my desk, I did feel a little bit like I wish I was lying by the pool. I did.
But don't you think even one night away can sometimes do it for you?
Oh,
Like I was only
absolutely.
away for one night last night, the night before last, and it was plenty. I actually couldn't believe. Yesterday I was saying it feels like I've had a week off. Just taking one night off.
Mm.
And it's funny when you take a night off because you're sick, or you take a day off because you don't feel like going to work that day. You've got something, you're feeling ill, or you've got I don't know, whatever it is. You've got
Yeah, when you
prob-
that's it. That's the joy of when you're away because and everything is fine and you just a little bit away,
Hmm.
just being away from your
Mhm.
desk, being away from the traffic, being away from the noise
Yeah.
of
No,
Joburg.
that'll rejuvenate you. That'll fill you up with energy.
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
and just the fresh air. Just the fresh air. Being able to wake up in the morning and breathe in lots of fresh air because it's out in the bush. And
Well,
it was so quiet when we went for like 2 game drives. That's all we had time for, a morning one and an afternoon one, but just that was
Booms.
so much joy.
I went for a little straight after the show yesterday. 7 o'clock we finished because we always play out an interview at 7. And I went for a little ride on this little golf cart around this place where I was. But it was quite chilly. And I went at maximum speed, right? So I mean a golf cart can't go very fast. But I was driving around in this crisp, fresh morning air, and got back feeling so damn good. It just reminds you, and this is now why I understand people who go for a run at 5 a.m. And I still think they're crazy, because there's a huge difference between hopping on a golf cart or going for an actual run. But I have such respect for people who do that. And
Yes,
then,
there is.
the one thing I realized about this is like you just feel like you started the day right. I don't normally start the day with, going for a run, for example. I understand why people would get on a bike or go for a run or do their exercise first thing in the morning. It's fantastic. It gets you going. It's the best way to start your day.
Yeah, it does. And just a little bit of cold morning air inside your lungs.
Oh, the best. It is the best. So when I got into bed last night, and I still haven't got to electric blanket stage. Also, what's the point? Because how do you know when you're going to have power or not? You can't switch your electric blanket on. The whole point for me, when it does come to electric blanket time, is that you put it on like an hour before you get into bed or half an hour before you get into bed, and then you switch it off, and that's it. You don't switch it on again. But I haven't even got to that stage yet, so I'll let you know when it happens. But I got into bed, and I suddenly realized like the room is cold, right? And I didn't have windows open or anything. Back in my own bed, I'm like, the air is cold and I love it. There's something beautiful about lying in a warm bed where your body's warm, but you go, and the air is cold. Oh, it's nice. That's terrific. So little
So
things.
this morning when that storm was going,
you can have this experience and you can be like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be alive. Just from breathing in air in your bed when you get into bed at night. That gives you joy.
So this morning when that storm was going, on my side of the world, it was probably about 2:30, so a little bit earlier than you. And it was pouring. There wasn't thunder on the side, but it was just hard rain. Like that
Yeah.
did sound wonderful to be in a warm blanket with that outside. It was, although I was dreading the waking up to the freezing cold after that rain.
You know what the best thing is like a Saturday or Sunday where you don't have to rush out of bed and you can lie in bed and the window, you can see the rain hitting the window pane. It's the most romantic, happy, beautiful situation you could be, whether there's someone else in your life or not. It's just so fantastic to hear that rain on the window pane and lie there and go, okay, I don't have to get out of this bed now. I can just stay here until whenever I want. Fuck. Talk about privilege. Talk about being happy. If I have 3 days like that in a year, that's enough for me to keep me busy.
Look at that message from Cunning Stunt. He says, you used to be in the worst mood about winter. You're getting old.
Yeah. And appreciating the small things now. Well, you see, I mean, it's you've got to understand that most of the time when we start the show, it's freezing cold, and I'm feeling sorry for myself because I had to wake up in the freezing cold. And that's true for all of us, right? So obviously I'm only human. But the fact is also every season has its beauty. And I'm still not a winter person. I'm not going to suddenly become one of those people who goes, ooh, I love winter. But every season has its beauty. And this is a very, very cool way to start winter. This year, we've started with quite a lot of rain. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
It's been wet.
A lot of rain.
When it's bucketing down at the beginning of winter, some people say, oh, it's a very bad sign. It's going to be extremely cold winter. I don't know anything about that.
Cold winter.
I don't know anything about that, but I do like the combination. Like there's something about the cold rain and then in the middle of summer, that very warm rain that just, I love that. I've seen the beauty in it now, and I'm not going to be grumpy about it. I promise.
Also, there's a lot of other things to be grumpy about. The weather cannot be one of them.
Correct.
Or should not be one of them.
Nico says tomorrow is a high of 8 degrees in the southern Drakensberg. Ooh, Jesus. We are banda.
Hey.
I do wish we had snow. Nikki says snow makes the winter worth the cold. I do wish we had snow in winter. I think that would be so magical.
I think the kind of cold, wet that we're having right now, I think this is going to be one of those snowy winters.
Oh, I hope so. That would be so exciting. Oh my God, it would be so exciting to imagine waking up one morning in like the middle of June or July, and it's white outside and there's snow falling. Oh my! I think I will jump. I think I'll jump out of my skin. I'll be so excited. I mean, everybody else will be confused. The dogs, the birds. Can you imagine how confused everybody will be? I will be so happy. Oh, man, oh man. Listen, can I complain about something quickly that is an ongoing problem? I went to the gym on Monday. After we finished up our meetings at work, I went to gym. And I've just got to ask why it is that old men, gross old men, insist on exposing their cock and balls in the fucking locker room, and not just exposing them and getting dressed and undressed. They stand, Phumi, they stand like this. They stand with their one leg up like a Captain Morgan, and they towel their balls in front of it's like they get a thrill out of it, these old men. And it's not just one or two guys, it's all of them. It's like men over a certain, I swear to God, it's so unpleasant. And I'm not a prudish pain in the, I understand that it's a men's locker room and guys go in there to change and to shower and all this shit. But that they must do this toweling of the horrible saggy old man balls in front of everybody. It's so disgusting, man. Can someone just put up a notice in each of these gym change rooms? You don't have to see this because this doesn't happen in women's change rooms. I'm fairly sure it doesn't happen with you.
No.
And
I have
put me disgusting.
Why don't you make a note, Gareth, and then just you come in early and put it up, and no one will know who put it up.
I do the show in the morning, so I can only go to gym in the afternoons. But I just feel like, and I'm not the only one, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of other people who have noticed this. A lot of other guys must go to gym and they notice that it's always these saggy fucking gray ball hair old men, and they insist on displaying the meat and veg in the most like I'm standing like literally a meter and a bit away. There's a bench and there's the locker, and I'm putting my gym bag in the locker with my car keys and all that shit, and I'm taking my earphones and my phone, and I'm already dressed for gym. And in that amount of time, I have to see like 4 pairs of old man balls in close proximity, by the way.
And are they talking to each other at that point, or are they all just minding their own business?
I don't know, because they're barely coherent. They like blah, 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 blah. They make like farting and throat clearing noises, and it's just so revolting. I mean, if I become one of those men, I give absolute permission to anyone to shoot them.
Well, you should have the conversation and say,
what? I must talk to these people.
It's a deeply disturbing sight you're displaying there, old man.
How are you going to have that conversation? How would you start that conversation? First of all,
exactly like that. That is a deeply disturbing sight you're displaying there, old man.
Yeah, but I mean, that's very rude, hey? And I'm not sure there's a gentle way to say it. Plus, these guys are crusty. I don't know if they can hear. I don't know if they can hear properly. I don't know if they're going to go, huh? And then come up close to you. And I don't want that. Ugh. See,
oh my goodness. Someone in the comments, Smile and Tiny says it's true. Is there no
This is a thing. I hang out naked way longer than is necessary. I'm telling you, guys, we need to stop this. They also stink up the locker room with talcum powder, says Congo Chris. Well, there's a funny thing they do too, is that they always have like a lot of stuff, and they have like a toiletries bag. Now, I don't go to the gym to do my daily ablutions. All right. I wash at home in the morning and at night at home. Okay. But I go to the gym. If I shower at the gym, it's immediately after I've trained, and then I need to go somewhere after that. So I don't have time to go home in between. But these guys they shave their heads, they shave their beards, they put on their whole lot. Phumi, you're so disgusted by this.
I think I think you're well within your rights as a gym member to write a notice to the management to say this must be stopped. This can't be this. No,
it's revolting. It's honestly absolutely real. I just think, if they weren't so old, they wouldn't be so brazen about it. Like, you don't see, 30, 20, 40-year-olds walking around like toweling the balls and the ass crack in front of everybody. They don't do that. Anyway. All right, we gotta go to a break. We've got the burning platform coming up next. From gross old man balls to the burning platform. That's how we move.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry I had to do that, everybody. Now we've dispensed with the most unpleasant stuff is all done. Now we will get onto the burning platform. That is coming up next. We've got Kanthan, Phumi, and Phumlani Majozi. It's going to be a busy show. Stick around. Lots of good stuff to come.
It's the decade that just won't go away, mainly because we won't let it. It's That 80s Show, the show that taste forgot. Every Friday, Paolo and Dori remember the 80s. Movies, music, fashion, wham, beachies, and the half. If it was acceptable in the 80s, it will get you cancelled today. That 80s Show, new episode every Friday, live or as a podcast on cliffcentral.com.
The first sign of going into that menopausal period, and the menopausal period will include the perimenopause. Confusing period, because when we look at your hormone levels, they're still normal, but you're starting to see the signs, and the first one is changes in your menstrual cycle. So if you've had a regular cycle every 28 days and you bleed for 4 or 5 days, first changes in the amount of bleeding, either that it becomes heavier or less, and then changes in the frequency. In other words, now you start bleeding every 32 days, or suddenly you do it every couple of weeks.
That was the T Health Show, empowering you with knowledge. Download all previous episodes on your favorite podcast platform. The T Health Show is brought to you by T Clinic.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Talita has asked, if a dealer has advertised a car for a certain price on the site, do they have to honor the price?
No.
Because they were in a scenario where they went to the dealership and they found that the price on the site versus the price that they received at the dealership was about 30,000 Rand more expensive.
So the answer is, catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Although my mother would appreciate this volume.
All right. Let us do this. It is time for the burning platform. Is that Kanthan mouthing off in the background?
Indeed. It is indeed.
Good morning, Kanthan. How are you?
He's bringing his grumpy old manness into the studio.
Talking about ball sacks on the show this morning. Jeez, guys, really?
That was literally only about 30 seconds of the show.
Yeah,
it was a crucial
by the way,
30
Kanthan,
seconds of the show.
It is crucial. This topic needs airing.
Guys, I'm going to tell you before we get into the grand scheme of things. Okay, I'm still slightly traumatized for learning a new word yesterday.
What was that?
It's called wake. It's called wake mezake. WAKEMEZAKA. I'm not going to tell you what it means. Go Google it, but I've been traumatized ever since. Firstly, that it exists, and secondly, that the Japanese actually have a word for it. So Yes. Oh, guys, what a time! What a time to be alive. Yes.
Oh, drinking alcohol from a woman's body. Is that it?
Yeah, drill down into it even further.
Do we have to ask Kenny Kunene? Should we just invite Kenny and ask him?
No. This is beyond Kenny. This is no.
We'll just don't tell him about it.
I don't think anything's beyond Kenny. All right, let's get into it this morning. There's a lot to talk about, and among those things, chief among them, is probably the unemployment numbers that have come out. But we'll get to that in a second, because the person who's brought the unemployment numbers to our attention is none other than a regular guest on the Burning Platform, and he is welcome, as always, to share his controversial points of view, and he has lots of them. He is Phumlani Majozi. How are you, Phumlani?
I'm well. It's great to be here. It's great to see Kanthan. You guys, we sound like we're having an exciting time here on this show.
I'm so impressed. The guy's wearing a tie. It's yes. I like that. No, it's cool. I really like that.
Phumlani is one of those old school people who dresses up when he's going to address all of us. I mean, he might not be wearing pants, but from the waist up, he looks like he's very well outfitted.
I promise you, I am wearing pants, Gareth.
Well, we just have to take your word for it.
No, we don't want to prove it. Lady and gentlemen, let's get stuck into one of the underlying massive problems in South Africa, one that often gets brushed under the carpet. People don't like to talk about it. The government has no solution for this problem. It is not something the government can technically solve. They can help create the conditions for employment, but unemployment continues to plague us. And I spoke to someone not so long ago. In fact, Kanthan, you were at this lunch. It was probably end of last year. And this guy said to us, because he has access to lots of research and statistics, he says he doesn't think the unemployment number is nearly where it is because of the informal economy. And I think we must just look at the numbers first, and then I'd like to have your comments on whether you think that is a good reflection of South Africa, or whether that's just the formal economy where people are actually reporting and where government is researching, the tax-paying, non-cash economy. So what have we got, Phumlani? What are the numbers at the moment? What are the latest unemployment numbers?
Well, the latest unemployment numbers, there was an increase of 0.2%, which went to basically meaning that the unemployment rate rose to 32.9%. And that follows from the 32.7% that we saw at the end of last year, the last quarter. Now, when you look at that unemployment rate, that's what's called the official unemployment rate, right? It excludes the number of the people who have given up looking for work. As soon as you account for the number of the people who have given up looking for work, the numbers of when it comes to unemployment in South Africa, they rise to plus 41%, right? I think about 42%.
Right.
So that tells you that, and when you do the comparison, and you look at those numbers, you compare amongst South Africa's peers in the emerging markets, we're just right at the top. So it highlights a very big problem that we have, that from an unemployment rate perspective, we are doing very badly as a country. And we have been doing badly for years. It's not something new. South Africa's unemployment rate, when you compare it over the past year, it's been rising and rising again. Now, something very interesting, Gareth, the president was speaking recently, I think somewhere in KwaZulu-Natal, where we were saying that, well, since 1994, we have created, I think he said about plus 8 million jobs or something that we have created. What he didn't account for or didn't say is that actually, when it comes to unemployment rates, our rates have increased in contrast to 1994. He never spoke about that, but he spoke about the fact that in absolute numbers terms, they have created plus 8 million jobs. So, I mean, it is a very big problem that South Africa faces. and it's something that really is constraining the economy. Now, the question is to what are the issues that lead to these very high unemployment rates is something that I hope we will delve into this hour.
No, Phumlani, I'll just give you the very short explanation. Okay, we've created 8 million jobs and we've created 20 million more people. That's a short answer.
Yeah,
and
correct.
And we know the secret of economic growth. Okay, if your economy grows at a faster rate than your population, you're going to be prosperous. If your economy grows at a slower rate than your population, then we're going to be in the shit street that we're in right now.
So we have so we have an economic growth that underperforms population growth. And I think Kanthan is right, but it also highlights, because I mean, the increase in population shouldn't automatically mean that you have a higher unemployment rate. It also highlights the failure on policy as well. I don't think we can excuse them and say that because of the increase in population, therefore, and then it makes sense to have higher unemployment rates. Yeah.
So Phumlani and Kanthan and Phumi, here's the thing. If Kanthan is right, and I have no reason to not believe him, I mean, there's a simple definition. You can Google it if you don't believe Kanthan. But are we then required to decrease the population or increase the economic activity? Because we've got
to increase economic activity. India's population has been growing as a very good example, but India's population growth is 2%. India's economic growth is 8%. That's a pathway to prosperity.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. What can the government do? Because we're all obsessed in this country with the government, and rightly so, because they are a responsible party when it comes to things like, electricity provision, for example, which is definitely the single biggest factor that is inhibiting economic growth at the moment. But what can they do? And then we'll look at what everyone else can do. What should government be doing to incentivize and push along this economy?
They need to get out of the way.
Less regulation.
We have masses of unemployed people, and we have minimum wage, which prices them out of the market. Guys, I've said for the longest time, I would rather have a scenario where in a family of 5, you have 5 people who are earning 2,000 Rand a month than one person earning 10,000 Rand a month. Because what that is doing is that it's actually spreading the base of people who are actually employed. Because remember, most people actually live in family units. We're not looking at single families where there's one breadwinner that's going out and putting food on the table. When you have a scenario where you're actually removing the price caps on labor, then you're going to have a situation where people are able to employ other people and actually get things done. Right now, the scenario that we've got, okay, let's say there's a job that's going for a minimum wage of, what is it currently, Phumi? It's about 3,500 or something like that per month. When you have that scenario, you have a job that's going for 3,500 Rand a month. You've got a woman who wants to take this job for 3,500 Rand a month, but she's a single mother, so she needs to pay someone to look after her child at home. Can she afford to pay the person looking after her child at home, 3,500 a month? Absolutely not.
No.
Would that person looking after the child at home be willing to be there for 500 Rand a month? That 500 Rand a month that person's not currently getting? Absolutely. But it's against the law. The inherent stupidity of when we have cheap and abundant labor, but we make it expensive and therefore we make it non-abundant. It is so simple, guys, to fix this. And you will have these academics that now pitch up from Stellenbosch that tell you, no, actually a minimum wage is not a problem. It does not actually hinder economic growth. Well, actually, in the first world scenario, yes. In our scenario, no.
All right, but hang on, because to be the devil's advocate this morning and just push you and Phumlani in this case a little bit further, I see a couple of comments here, and most of them are not particularly pleasant, but JP says, be like China and put a quota on the number of children you can have. Now, that's ridiculous because that's backfired horribly on China. Plus, you can't have the government. Can you imagine having to apply to this government in order to have kids? I mean, come on. I wouldn't take an instruction from Cyril Ramaphosa on whether or not I can have a child or not. Would you really want that, JP? Would you want it? Or is it one of those things that you're just saying would be okay for other people to have? Let's stop other people from having kids, but Cyril can't tell me what to do. Which is it, JP? I really need to know.
But you know what it is, Gareth? We had a letter from a listener a couple of weeks ago, also about it's also about an overburdening on small businesses of regulation, right? So it's not just about minimum wage. It's a myriad of little regulations, most of which are actually almost impossible to police. And so what the government has done is it's made every business owner the policeman of all of that. So all of the forms you have to fill in, all of every second month, the VAT you have to submit, all of every 6 months, the PAY, all of that over-regulation strangles the economy. Never mind the overburdening in terms of taxation for small businesses. So we are unable to unlock the potential in that space. So a lot more people are kind of...
Do you agree with Kanthan on minimum wage?
Say that again, please. I do think, though, that we need guardrails. So we do need guardrails in terms of exploitation of people too, because we have had this in the society that we live in. And it still happens, even as there is a minimum wage in place. It still happens that there are people, farm workers, there are people, we see it all the time, right, on social media, with people who bring in helpers into their homes and underpay them horribly and have all of these crazy expectations of them. I think South Africans need to realize that sometimes you may think that you want to have a maid in your house, but you actually can't afford it. But all of that stuff, and it's too simple to just say, oh, take away minimum wage, because the government still has a duty to protect people.
Well, no, wait. Where does it say the government has a duty to protect people? Is that in our constitution? Is that a law? And they're not currently enforcing that law at any level. I don't get any protection from this government. Do any of you guys get protection from this government? No. Come on, Phumi. Those are platitudes.
So
like we've got protection, guys. Look, I want to say something about this. Okay.
Before you carry on,
we've got our labor laws.
That is important.
They are good labor laws. Okay. The CCMA process is a good process. Let's not confuse labor laws which protect the rights of workers with a minimum wage, which is defining to potential employers what their business should be able to afford. That's the difference. I'm a fan of the CCMA. I'm a fan of our labor laws. I spent the 80s as a trade unionist, guys. Come on, work with me on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, one of the very big issues that have been raised about South Africa's labor markets is the labor costs. When you look at the labor costs in contrast to, or in comparison to other markets around the world, the developing markets, South Africa is not really, the labor costs are quite high. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Why are we not having a competitive labor market? And then also the energy supply issue. Really, it has destroyed jobs and businesses. And the Nedbank report that was released not long time ago highlights the damage that has been done by the energy crisis that we face in the country. So there's no way we can think that we are going to have good employment numbers in an environment that is not conducive to basic things like energy supply. How do you run a business, Gareth, when electricity is off from 2 p.m. up until 5 p.m.? I mean, how do you do that? You can never run a business in such an environment. And we cannot expect to have good, job numbers in such a situation. So I think for me, it's a structural issue. Kanthan is right. I side more with Kanthan when it comes to the minimum wages. I think in a country with very much shocking unemployment rates, to have a minimum wage laws, I think it's really it's a counterproductive step.
One of the things that we don't consider when we talk about, and it's, easy. What are with Kanthan? Platitudes. The thing is, one of the things that we don't consider when we talk about the unemployment rates that we also have in this country, and something that is completely and grossly underreported, is also the level of education that we have. So where you have in like our country, where only 34% of kids who start school finish school, even if you opened a factory in Pietermaritzburg today that could hire 5,000 people or even 15,000 people, most of those young people that are sitting there unemployed, you are unable to employ them because they are undereducated, even for a factory job. These, and this is the thing for me, is that it is not one particular string that you have to pull and then it unravels the whole thing. Is there are so many complexities that we have to consider in South Africa.
I totally agree with you, Phumi. But we do have, Kanthan, we do have a bunch of unemployable people. Like, that there are people who are so uneducated and who have such hardware problems in terms of their brains that they probably can't do any good. They can only do damage. I mean, most of them work in politics, but we'll just leave that aside for a second. The real problem here is that we don't have a handle on the informal economy. And I think it's something worth talking about. I opened up this conversation by saying, what do you think the real number is? Do you really think it's as high as 30, 40%?
Yes.
Or do you?
I think it's probably higher.
But do you think people are just sitting around, that they've given up on work, which Phumlani mentioned earlier, that they aren't even trying? Nobody's sitting around. I don't see people sitting around. I see people trying whatever they can, hustling, selling this, cutting that, changing that, offering this paint job, this piece job. I see people trying really hard to do things to earn money.
So trying hard to earn money is different, because the thing is, the formal economy trickles down into the informal economy, where we have, what is our current growth rate is 0.00001%. There is no trickle down effect. And we've also spoken a little bit on the show about the incredibly high salaries that certain executives get, as opposed to some of their lower paid workers, or even the middle paid workers in those organizations. The trickle down effect. So the trickle down effect does not happen as much as you. Kanthan made the example earlier of wanting to employ a person who's willing to take a job at the 3,500, but then needs to get somebody to stay home to look after. That is where the trickle down happens. The person that stays at home to look after your kid, or the person that drives your kid to school, or does all of those. We don't have the trickle down effect. I think the number is way higher than is being reported right now.
Because that's
why we sit here and we talk. I say it's higher. That's why we sit here and we talk about the fact that 30 million South Africans live on less than 20 Rand a day. That's why that is the statistic.
I want to keep us focused here. That's all valuable information, especially that last bit that you mentioned on how little people are living on a day. All right. But I think to bring in the rich people at the far end of this is not going to help. I mean, it's not going to. It's not as relevant. So we've already figured out. Let's just recap where we are, because I don't want us to lose our way in this conversation and end up talking about a bunch of irrelevant stuff. First of all, we admit number one big problem in the economy is electricity. You can't possibly run a business. Phumlani, you contributed this one. You can't run a business where you don't have a reliable electricity supply. Number two, we have an uneducated, unemployable population. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of South Africans who are not capable of being employed in the economy because they cannot perform any useful task or service. Nothing. They are outside of it and always will be. They're basically going to be left to their own devices, which is terrifying. The third thing that we've brought up is the fact that we have laws and regulations that are onerous and cumbersome. Do you guys agree with a lot of people in the comments here who say that part of that onerous red tape environment that we've created that inhibits the economy is BEEE?
Absolutely.
I never remember.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The people who end up getting rich from BEE regulations are the people who are there to police the regulations.
The consultants who make sure that you
Yes.
have the right BEE certification. But also, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, that was signed into law by Cyril Ramaphosa, is also the fact that businesses that I think are under 50 people, is it 50 people? I think it's businesses that are under 50 people. The level of the level of regulation that they are put to scrutiny is exactly the same, no matter how much they make. So if you have 50 people and you make 5 billion, and if you have 50 people and you make 10 million, you have the same level of scrutiny, right? So what's possible, what we're probably going to see is we're going to see a lot of businesses unbundling into smaller groups where they don't have to stick to a particular regulation around all of this BEE. And the people who suffer are always going to be the little guy. So those regulations, BEE regulations, even I, as a Black woman today, I don't have a company that's a level 1 BEE. Because what BEE regulations want from you is all sorts of things that you actually, if you are a small business, you actually cannot reach the status that you think you need to reach, that they tell you you need to reach. So you are kept out of the economy. Doesn't work. It maybe it could have worked if it had been implemented in a particular way all those many years ago. But where we sit today, it's just one more hurdle that people have to jump through that doesn't work.
So Phumlani, what's your solution?
When it comes to BEE, I have said that, if you were to repeal BEE tomorrow, really, I doubt there would be people in townships and poor communities, protesting against the repeal of BEE. But the people who would make noise would be the elite in the media, who would tell you that we need BEE for XY reasons. Black people are still left behind, and so on, trying to justify a policy that has been counterproductive. So, and that alone would really be a sign to show that who is really more concerned about BEE. It's not the little man in South Africa on the ground who has never benefited anything from BEE. It's the elite, because the elite themselves have been the biggest beneficiaries of BEE policies. So my view is that what BEE has done, and I'm currently reading Andre de Ruyter's new book, Truth to Power, and these problems, you can see them in a company like Eskom. That the whole BEE process was sort of repressive and constraining in terms of ensuring that the company operates efficiently. So it has been a constraint that has repressed the economic productivity, and I think it's something that needs to be reversed from our government.
Let me ask you a specific question here, everybody, because we talk about BEE, but most people don't know what the rules are. Cyril has just introduced a new rule where basically, if you're a business with under 50 people, you can still employ whites. But if you're over 50 people, you're not allowed to employ a white person. I mean, it's in black and white. This is the most outrageous, kind of discrimination we've had in 28, 30 years. This is outrageous that now they're telling you cannot employ people of a specific skin color. It's really that's out of control.
I see Carl Dos Santos in the comments is saying, don't confuse, I think is the word that he wants to say, BEE with employment equity. I think one of the things that a lot of people have missed is the fact that those broad-based Black economic empowerment codes, as they look different in different sectors, really have 7 areas in which they operate. So when you talk about BEE, it encompasses employment equity. So one area will be about ownership, one area will be about management and executive control, one area will be about employment equity. There is an area about sustainable economic development. It also includes the area of where you spend your CSI. It also would include what they call so how you spend your money. So procurement, basically, how and where you spend your money. So it makes everybody the police of everybody. So if in your company you have 5 suppliers, you need to police those 5 suppliers for their BEE. And those suppliers, we were talking about trickling down, and so on and so on and so forth, as a former president used to say. So all of those things, so the employment equity aspect, which is the law that I was also talking about earlier, which is what, if you have 50 people or less, whether you make $1 billion or whether you make $1 million or 500,000, those laws are all the same for everybody. And so the employment equity component of it has been reshifted in this way.
I'm sorry, I just want to get into specifics here. This is an absolute outrage. Here's the Employment Equity Act, list of economic sectors and all the rest of it. Much worse than I expected. Here are the affected industries. This is according to a tweet. Any companies with 50 plus employees in these industries can basically have 3.5% white female and 4.5% white male employees. I mean, this is unbelievably stupid. Are we all agreed on that front?
We all do agree. I do agree. Well, Gareth, I don't want to be my point here, and I want your audience to get me here. I'm very much opposed to racial affirmative action, right? I'm not against the government helping the people who are disadvantaged in the country. But what they should focus on is to help people not because of the color of their skin, right? If you have some program where you want to upgrade the poor or to uplift them, don't focus on their race. Create programs that are for everybody, so that you avoid having people who are already well off benefiting from certain systems of government simply because of the color of their skin, right? So those things, I think, for me, I need to be clear that I'm not opposed to government helping or extending a hand to people who are disadvantaged, but it should not be done because of the color of their skin. Sorry. And there must be some criteria that use that non-racial to address the issues.
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that, Phumlani, but I'm just absolutely gobsmacked and dumbfounded. In the year 2023, Tula Singesi can click his fingers and decide how many Indians, how many coloreds, and how many whites and how many blacks you, Phumi, and Kanthan and I can employ. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Joseph Stalin would be applauding this from the sidelines if he were alive.
Hendrik Vervoet would be dancing.
Hendrik Vervoet would be thrilled. This is his fucking wet dream, this whole idea. And Tulas can do this without capriciously, without any information, without any research. He can basically say, oh no, we've reduced that number, or we've improved that number, or we've increased that number, with nobody telling you why, when, or wherefore. Do these people not understand how businesses work?
Guys, the fundamental problem, and I keep coming back to this, we should not be pointing fingers at people like Tulas or like Ibrahim or like Praveen or anyone in the lower echelon. This all goes back to Cyril, okay? This all goes back to Cyril. This happens under his watch with his complicity. And the way in which you fix this is by concentrating on the fact that Cyril doesn't have a clue and is allowing everyone to do whatever they want that contradicts what other departments are doing, which is why we have the absurd situation where he has to have a minister of electricity when he already has a minister of energy and a minister of public enterprises.
Crazy.
And all of this is doing nothing but adding to the fundamental dysfunction of the state.
And
but I think it's great.
Yeah, it's not clear. It's not clear, Kanthan, as to who was. I heard that this minister of electricity basically it's not clear what his powers are. So how to appoint a minister as a president without knowing what his powers will be? I mean, that shows you a state that is totally confused, a state that doesn't know what it's doing. And it's sad. It's very sad. I mean, it just doesn't make sense how to appoint someone without knowing what his powers will be.
One of the things that Cyril, and whether Cyril knows what he's doing. There's nobody at the wheel driving. But one of the things that you see with this Employment Equity Restructuring Act, as I like to call it, is the fact that we now effectively have in Parliament, because it doesn't just go through cabinet, these kinds of things, it has to go through the entire parliamentary process. We have a bunch of people there who don't have any new ideas, who don't have it. So they're tinkering. They're just going back and tinkering. We had this type of a thing. Now we're shifting it a little bit. Now we're adding this. Now we're taking this away from it. They don't have new thinking to solve the problems we have at hand. And it's, I mean, Cyril being the CEO effectively is where the buck should stop. And he is the person that we should hold most accountable. But it just says to us that it's everybody in all of those seats don't have the ideas. They're not fighting it back.
Bring Kanthan in as a minister.
Yeah, well, trust me, that would help, but I don't think he wants the job anymore. All right, so guys, let's just move into something else, because we are on Cyril, and it does kind of segue nicely into this Russia, US, South Africa problem that we have at the moment. And they say it's all been resolved. I mean, they're telling us everything's fine, guys, nothing to see here. Sofikile Mbalula, who I really follow for comic relief, but occasionally it does drive me a little bit up the wall. I saw him meeting with the US Ambassador Brigitte, and the two of them seem to be in good spirits. Just a couple of days ago, America accused Russia and South Africa of basically a bit of an arms deal on the side. South Africa supplying Russia with arms in their ongoing conflict with Ukraine. We've declared that we are neutral, that we are not taking a side in this, which is an interesting thing because we've definitely been more friendly to Russia than to Ukraine. What would the effects of any of this be? And are any of you concerned about this? We'll start with you, Phumlani, because I have a feeling I know what Kanthan's going to say, although he can surprise us at the best of times. And I think I know what Phumi feels about this. What do you think?
Well, we have said we are neutral in weights. This is my observation. We have said we are neutral in weights, but in actions, I don't think we have shown some that neutrality. Firstly, I don't believe that it's a lie that we have that there were some arms that were given to Russia. I've given the record of my government, the ANC government. It's likely that is true. So I don't believe that's a lie. And then we had we've been sort of very close in terms of the drills that we have been doing with Russia. Not long ago. So, and my honest view is that we've been very much confused when it comes to foreign policy. We haven't really been able to be strategic, especially given the conflicts that are going on around the world. I don't believe that we should be involved in a power struggle. That's not my sense. I don't believe in that, because we are. I mean, it's just something that we cannot afford. But
yeah, but Phumlani, I just need to climb in at this point. Okay, we shouldn't be discussing beliefs. We should be discussing facts. So just tell me what facts you have relating to this thing, because I think that's the crucial thing for us. We spend far too much time talking about what we believe, instead of actually saying, this is what happened, here's why it's a problem, and here's how we go about fixing it. So what are the facts around this matter?
Okay,
whatever
so for me,
So
for me, my honest view is that it's not only just the Ramaphosa administration, right? Even under Jacob Zuma, South Africa has sided more with Russia and China. When you look at even the voting record at the UN, we have been siding more with those countries, and we have also even we haven't even condemned even the actions of brutal governments like governments of Myanmar, right, or people that abuse the people. We have never been, taken a side where we condemn those situations. The idea that we can continue to show this cordial sort of relationship with Russia, to me, it doesn't make sense, right? We should be in a position where we say we are opposed to the invasion of Ukraine, and that we condemn the actions. But of course, we'll continue to engage and to find a solution to the situation of Ukraine-Russia war. So I don't think our government has done, and it's not just the Ramaphosa government, it's the ANC policy of failing to condemn the actions of very much human rights abuses, and not being able to come out forcefully to say we oppose certain situations. So when it comes to asking me about the facts about the issue of these arms that it's believed were sold to Russians, I'm saying that given the record of our government, though of course the matter is still being investigated, but given how corrupt our system is, I wouldn't be surprised that there were people who were facilitating that process. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. So now let me just give a factual basis that takes us back through a few generations of ANC policy. Let's start off with the Mandela administration, where we had the butcher of Nigeria, Sani Abacha, who executed Ken Saro-Wiwa, a journalist who was reporting on the exploitative practices of the oil companies that were devastating people in the regions where the oil was being extracted. Ken Saro-Wiwa was executed. Nelson Mandela stood up on every public platform, condemned the role of Sani Abacha, called for, then at the time, it was the Organization of African Unity, to pull together and to actually isolate Nigeria. And what happened? The rest of the Organization of African Unity ended up pulling together and essentially putting Mandela on the sidelines. They were not prepared to go through with the process of actually taking a stance on this. And the reason why that becomes entirely ineffective is because everyone has those small Nyana skeletons, Phumi, that every country has those. And if you start this process of condemning, it doesn't work. Then we had the Thabo Mbeki administration. And Mbeki embarked on what the media started talking about as quiet diplomacy. The media are idiots. There's only two types of diplomacy. There's diplomacy and there's gunboat diplomacy, because diplomacy by definition is quiet and it takes place behind the scenes. And there's a lot of stuff that actually took place under Thabo Mbeki's watch that actually quietly contributed to stuff that went on around the world. And, we can talk, for example, about the entire role that South Africans played, including Rolf Meyer and Cyril Ramaphosa, by the way, in brokering of peace in the Irish conflict. So that's the second phase. Then we get to the Jacob Zuma era, where Jacob Zuma, his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maite Nkwana Mashabane, was representing South Africa on the international front, agreed to the establishing of a no-fly zone over Libya because they had not bothered reading the fine print, but effectively sided with the United States in that. And what was the end result of that? It ended up with the toppling of Gaddafi's government. So there's no consistent pattern out here of the ANC taking sides, Phumlani. These are facts that I'm putting out. Now, for the first time, I believe that international relations that we have right now under Naledi Pandor is probably the most competent that we've had to date. And the very simple example I'll give of it is that if you look in terms of what went down, the situation in Sudan fairly recently, where you had the British who were only able to evict their ambassadorial personnel from the battlefield. And meanwhile, you had South Africa, who was not only managing to extradite the South African nationals who were trapped there, they took out Lesotho nationals, they took out Namibian nationals. South Africa was being truly a global player out there. So I'm saying all of this now as a background because the media consistently tries to portray what happens under various ANC administrations as a series of associations with Russia and with China. And that is absolutely not the case. Now, the questions that I asked around this Russian ship landing, first question was, what type of weaponry do we have that's compatible with Russian equipment and training? Because our purportedly corrupt arms deal imported weapons from the West. All of the stuff that used to be manufactured by Denel with the backing of Armscor was all designed to NATO spec. okay, and is incompatible. All right. So second thing is, where do we have artillery stockpiles to be able to be redeployed? There's a series of reports over the year. Look at Defense Web; it'll tell you that our artillery stocks have been looted and pillaged over the years. Okay. Third thing is that we had joint training exercises with the Russians and the Chinese in February. If there was a time to do a transfer of arms, that would have been the easy way to do it, instead of having a ship basically dock in the dead of night. And I also make the point that if someone takes the trouble to go through the stuff that Denel actually manufactures now, what type of equipment do we have that could potentially in any way assist Russia in terms of the war that they are fighting right now? So, and the final thing is that this ambassador is the same ambassador who last year said that there was going to be a terrorist attack in Sandton. Okay. And
yeah,
again,
that's right.
that caused market fluctuations. Okay. The guy's a lying fuck. Let's be very clear about this. Okay. And the net impact of what he did was to crash the rand.
All right. So then I have to ask two questions. First of all, Kanthan, I have no reason to doubt anything that you're saying is probably more accurate than anything we're hearing from the stupid media, because they never ask the right questions. But if it's true that, you know, we have nothing that Russia would want and that this doesn't look like it's a real thing, then why has our government not been better at communicating that this is bullshit to the average person here or in America or in Russia?
Who in our government is good at anything, really?
Well, you said Naledi
good at
Pandor
communicating.
She's probably running the most competent international relations department we've had in a long time. And
part of the reason for that
blind, the one-eyed is, I mean, really.
But part of the reason for that is that Clayson Monyela is a former ETV trained journalist, because he worked for ETV under my watch. And he's a competent communicator, and he keeps the debate out in the open, and everything is there managed quite flawlessly. That happens to be the reason. Everyone else, you know, their communicators actually kind of just and oh. Like Karine Jean-Pierre, you know, she's, have you guys ever watched her?
I think we're talking about a lot of things that all sound like there's a really good and sane way of looking through all of this. But I think if there's one thing that I must agree completely with you, Kanthan, is that this entire charade, which we have seen with the American ambassador and the supposed apology, non-apology that has been issued, is that it was to crash the rand. But more than that, I think it's definitely an American ploy, because if they are indeed looking at BRICS and looking at BRICS as being a terrible idea and an idea that moves a very big chunk of the world away from their dollar standard, then what they definitely don't want, and as we see South Africa veering more and more and getting deeper into the BRICS, and also Naledi Pandor did say, you know, one of the reasons why it is worth looking at the moving away from the dollar is because I don't believe that her strengthening other currencies, as she said it, then it is in America's interest that South Africa goes down, because we, South Africa being the most sophisticated economy on the continent, what the Americans don't want is they don't want China and Russia inheriting this economy and what it means and the voice that it has on the entire continent. And we see this, right? So if we see in the last OAU and how South Africa got everybody to eventually agree to and evicting the Israelis out of the meeting, South Africa still has a large voice on the continent, and they don't want that. America doesn't want that. So it's within America's interest to crush us and crash our economy, because we are a sophisticated economy.
Guys, just before we swing fully to the economy, I just want to put in a last word in terms of this Russian docking thing. So Guy Lamb, who is a criminologist out at Stellenbosch, has written a very good piece at The Conversation. I urge people to go out there and take a look at it. Okay, and the very simple thing that he says, the South African Minister of Defense, Thandi Modise, has stated that the Lady R docked in Simonstown in December 2022 to deliver a shipment of ammunition for the South African National Defense Forces Special Forces Regiment that has been ordered prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And he goes on to say, indeed, the Arms Control Committee's 2019 Arms Import Report lists the permit approval for the import of 5 million rounds of Russian ammunition to South Africa.
Is Lawrence Mbata back from Russia, by the way? For those of you who don't know who Lawrence Mbata is, he's the head of our military, and he's on he's the chief of our army, and he's out there in Russia on a military visit.
Guys, let's just try and focus on this, okay? But I urge all of you who think that you know what's going on. Yes, we know we have a corrupt government. Yes, we know that the ANC will steal at every conceivable opportunity. But the idea that the ANC, A, has the capability of producing arms, and B, that the Russians would actually need it is ludicrous.
We'll never know, Kanthan. Let's wait for the investigation. But all I'm saying is that, given the record of what we know about our government,
Phumlani, I'm saying that Guy Lamb has detailed this on The Conversation. Go look at it. The problem is that when we operate on the basis of beliefs rather than trying to drill down into facts, we end up with this never-ending cycle.
Let's wait for the
my facts are more important than my feelings.
Yeah, but I'm saying that let's wait for, because they've appointed the judge, right, or to do the investigation. Let's see what comes out.
That's going to be another Zondo commission. All of the stuff that Guy Lamb's talking about is in the public domain. We shouldn't be deferring to authority on everything. We have access to facts ourselves. We can do research.
You're basically telling us, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but you're saying, don't believe this US ambassador. He's talking complete nonsense, and he's trying to tank the rand.
Exactly.
He has tanked it. What do you mean he's trying to tank it? Have you seen the rand dollar exchange?
Okay, no, I think that's fascinating, because honestly, this is again why these insights on this show are so varied and so useful, because I think we do tend to accept the mainstream media narrative way too often without actually investigating the first principles. And Phumlani, I don't know if this is as shocking to you as it is to me, but what Kanthan's saying is pretty bloody earth-shattering.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it could be something that is very damaging to the country. But I think for South Africa going forward, I think messaging has to be correct. It has to be right, especially on a global stage, on how we position ourselves. Of course, I mean, the idea that there will always be some foreign interventions or people trying to tank the economy for their own purpose, that is going to happen. It's how the international system works. You always have people who are trying to discredit you as a country. But so long as you take the stances and the lines that are principles, that are consistent, and that are strategic as well, that's going to help. So we shall see how this thing evolves over the next months or so.
We have a self-serving president who's going to take us all down with him at this stage. We do. We have a self-serving president. And I think it also serves him, for all of us, to look at him and think that he is weak, or he is surrounded by all of these forces within the ANC. Therefore, he can't make any moves. I don't believe any of that. I think he knows exactly what it is that he's doing. And what he is doing is his self-enriching. And at this point, the Americans have called his bullshit on it, and he is now preparing to save himself.
Can I quickly just turn our attention, since you brought up America, and we can never avoid the elephant in the room. Any comments on the Durham report, which has just come out? I mean, this is really a very damning indictment of the FBI, of the Hillary Clinton campaign, and kind of makes it look like Donald Trump was telling the truth all along about an active campaign in the deep state to prevent him from becoming president, and then once he was president, to try and remove him by hook or by crook. I mean, this is beyond Watergate. It's beyond Watergate. Watergate, at least Nixon hired outside actors to go and break into the Democrats' offices in the Watergate building. In this case, the FBI, the state itself under Barack Obama, was put to work against an opposition candidate. I mean, why is this not making more noise?
Because this goes back to what we were just talking about and what Phumlani was touching on, where he was saying that the optics need to be right in terms of the rest of the world. Right now, the war that's being fought in the Ukraine, which goes directly back to what's going on in the US, it is a war where the media has been weaponized in order to push particular narratives. And I can't say this strongly enough. The entire way in which the media has been reporting on a whole range of things all fundamentally goes back to pushing a deep state narrative that is designed to push out specific people. We spoke on this show, guys, over the past several weeks, where I said the divide in the US right now is not between the Republicans and the Democrats. It's between the Trump Republicans and the deep state Republicans. And now we've got the second follow-up along the same lines within the Democratic Party, where you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is now running for president, who is effectively now the Trump of the Democratic Party, right, because he's saying a lot of things that Trump is saying. And the deep state now is going to be on a quest to take out Robert Kennedy as well. So they're now fighting two battles, because you have two people who are singing from the same hymn sheet and talking about the dangers of the American deep state. So the Durham report in of itself doesn't matter. What actually matters is who ends up getting into the White House. And right now, I promise you, the deep state is going out of their way to ensure that Biden gets another term. And they want Biden to get another term because it means that they can continue to do exactly the stuff that they have been doing up until now.
Yeah, look, for me, I think I'll be short here. The reason why, because your question, Gareth, was why this is not earth-shattering or making big headlines. Well, it's because it was the governmental system doing it on the Republicans and to Trump at worse. So if it were the other way around, if this thing was aimed at Democrats, then I'm telling you the mainstream media would have made a lot of noise because largely the mainstream media is very much something that is a mouthpiece of the Democratic Party in the United States. It's anti-Republican, it's anti-Trump, it's the conservative political movement is always demonized and thrown under the bus by the machines of the media that is largely Democratic or is run by people of the Democratic Party, and even the journalists, they are more pro-Democratic Party. So it's not a surprising thing that it's not a big thing, as you're saying. I'm not surprised by that because anyway, the mainstream media is always shooting down on the Republicans or the conservative movement. Now, that's my observation.
Okay. Phumi, you got the closing remarks on this
While
one.
we yap ourselves about mainstream media being an agent of... Look, I think...
At least the burning platform is not the mainstream media.
While we yap ourselves. But I think we've spoken about this before, and I think maybe this is a good place to end this show. It's important to look at more than just what is in front of our eyes. It's important to be in order to be able to decipher what it is that's going on. You're not just going to get it from the regular sources. It's not going to be from Clayson's Twitter feed. It's not going to be from the Twitter feed of the SG, Figile Mbalola. It's got to be from all sides. And then you've got to consider not just what's happening today, but what has happened in the past and where we are going to and how. And, again, we talk a lot on this show about how South Africa is not just a small island at the toe, a small piece at the toe of Africa, but really very connected to the rest of the world and still has quite a huge role, I think, on the continent as well. And so is often going to be the grass that suffers when the elephants fight.
All righty, everybody. Sure. Busy show. We've jumped all over the place. I hope it's been, I hope you feel like the grass that's been suffering while the elephants fight this morning. We will be back with another Burning Platform next week, Thursday. Phumlani, it's always good to see you. Thanks for being on the show. Kanthan, great to see you. And Phumi, as always, We'll see you next week, everybody. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Yo.